Thank you. I'd like to call to order the Lakewood City Council study session of Monday, May 11th, 2026. We've got 5 members present. I don't know if anybody's on Zoom tonight. Is anybody else on Zoom, Ms. Schumacher?
Mayor, there are no virtual attendees.
Thank you. First is the presentation by West Coast Baseball League, and I'd like to call Ms. Roxanne Miles, our Parks and Recreation Community Services Director, to give us an introduction to the individuals.
So thank you. Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council members. So we're happy to be here tonight. I'm going to invite Tony Bonacci to join you there at the table. In the arena here is also Wade Siegel, and he's another partner. And so the discussion tonight is about West Coast Baseball League and the possibility of bringing a franchise here to Lakewood. I also want to point out that Duncan Stevenson, who is with Pierce College, is also here because, as you know, we have a strong partnership with the college, and Field One, or the home field complex, is the site that is under consideration. So I'm going to turn things over to Tony here, move through his presentation, and I know he's happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Ms. Miles. Mr. Bonacci, the floor is yours. Does he have the clicker?
I was going to,
Oh, there you go.
I'll click for you. Are you ready? You just tell me next.
Deputy Mayor and council members, thank you for the invitation to be here. As Roxanne said, my name is Tony Bonacci. I'm here with my business partner, Wade Siegel, on behalf of the West Coast League, our organization, Southwest Washington Baseball Group, and introduce both of those things to you and the opportunity that we might bring both to Lakewood. So I'm going to start with a little bit, and I know that you've received the package. I'm going to start a little bit with a summary of what the league is, and then what our team is, and sort of how we operate and what we bring to the communities in which we play, and then talk a little bit about where we might go from here. The West Coast League is a summer collegiate baseball league, and in that regard, it is what it sounds like. It is a league that operates during the summer months. It is generally from just after Memorial Day until about the middle of August. The games are played very much, or the games look very much, and the schedule looks very much like a minor league schedule. We attract players from all over the country to play in our league, and we play approximately 60 games during the course of the summer. About 30 or 35 of those would be home dates. The West Coast League, within the leagues that do what we do, the West Coast League is at the high end of this level of baseball. The league started in 2005 as a 7-person league, and we just finished our 20th season last year. The initial teams in the league, there were 4 Washington teams, 2 Oregon teams, and 1 Canadian team. Last year, we finished our 20th season with 17 teams. 7 in Washington, 5 in Oregon, and now 5 in Canada. We've grown from an audience, or from a fan base that was about 200,000 total fans in those early stages, to last year over 750,000 fans. Watch West Coast League games live. In terms of you can switch to the next slide. Sorry. In terms of the level of play, we've been fortunate to have elite players, from throughout the country that have come to spend their summers with us on their way to hopefully playing professionally, or even to further their college careers. In the last 6 years, we have twice our league has produced the #1 overall draft pick in Major League Baseball. In 2025, we had 54 players that were drafted or signed as free agents with teams, and this year, the 2026 season, we had 35 of our alums that began that were on opening day Major League rosters. Go ahead and switch that. So our group, Southwest Washington Baseball Group, We are one of two groups in the league that operates two teams. The other being there's a group that operates Victoria and Nanaimo. We operate the two teams. We operate a team in Ridgefield, and this would be our second team. We began with a team in Cowlitz in 2010, and then Wade and I became partners in 2019 when Ridgefield became our second team. We are very much, baseball at this level is very much of a community experience. And that is why we enjoy it. And it directs our approach. The games become a gathering place for the communities. And we hope, our hope, is that our games are the things that people have in common. They're things that they both attract people from outside the area to the community, and they become what the community, one of the elements in which the community takes tremendous pride. You can go ahead and switch to the next slide. So we do surveys after every year, and I just wanted to speak to some of the numbers that we are particularly proud of. And our surveys kind of bear out what we hope our product is and would continue to be. You see in the bottom left, of the people that come to our games, 74% say that they come because it's their community team and to support their team. And we have 25% of our fans that respond to the survey say that they attend 10 or more games. It is a substantial commitment and something that we take a lot of pride in the fact that people that our fans do come to that many games and are there to support our players and our team. And our team, go ahead and go to the next slide. Our team it goes beyond. We consider our team much more than the players on the field. We have one of the things that our players allow us to do and that our organization allows us to do is to support local baseball. So we run camps that have been tremendous successes. We work with local youth organizations, and we provide sort of a path to local players to A, enjoy the game, and B, to see what they might become. As it turns out, the players that come to play for us, being college age, they are just wonderful with little kids. And so they're great role models. They're great at teaching the game, and they give us a connection. Go ahead to the next one. We have our organization and organizations like ours present a real opportunity for local employment, which tends to skew to younger folks. A lot of them for their very first. A lot of them end up being their very first job. Like we said, we have about 60 summer employment opportunities. We hope that what we do inspires the players that play for us and the young people that work for us. We hope it inspires them to see what might be in front of them on and off the field. In most cases, or in a lot of cases, that inspiration is sort of flipped, where watching them do what they do is an inspiration to us. It's great to watch the players on the field, to see what they need to see what they do to keep themselves in the game, and it is really nice to watch people work sometimes for the first time. So it's part of why we do it. On the field, go ahead to the next slide. Go ahead back to the other one. So on the field, just to put into context some of what we're talking about in terms of numbers on the field, and I'm going to use the Cowlitz organization because it had a 15-year runway and was mature in terms of the player development. But in 15 years, we had 92 players were drafted out of that organization, and 13 have made it all the way to the major leagues. And we had 19 players play in the College World Series, and that's sort of consistent with most of the organizations in our league. Off the field, preparing for this gave me an opportunity to look back at at our last 5 years. And in this case, I looked at what we've done in Ridgefield with our employment numbers. And we've had 245 employees over the last 5 years that have spent their summer with us. Some of them young people, some of them, some of them more mature, but it's 245 local summer positions, and we've had 100 of those have spent more than one summer with us. So it becomes a place where fans gather, but it also becomes a place that a lot of people in the area end up having in common as a place where they've worked and where they've spent some time. We have internships in addition to what we have as our summer sort of part-time positions. We have internships that are substantive and educational, and they're all paid internships, but substantive and educational, and provide an opportunity that are very sought after. And these range from things like broadcasting to accounting and social media and data analytics. We had a sports science internship for a summer that we did in collaboration with as a part of a Major League Baseball study. And so we have things that would present ongoing opportunities to people that want to do some of these things professionally. Go ahead, you can do the numbers. We referenced some of the idea that we are a gathering place gives us an opportunity to partner with local organizations, and so we can help them get their message out. We can help them do fundraising. These are some examples of some of the things some of the nights that we do, and all of them end up, the fundraising is significant, but it's also significant because they get to come out and enjoy the people that support them. The components of our business, a lot of them have numbers attached to them, and those numbers are undeniably significant. From the things that we talked about in the employment and the baseball to the economic development side and the additional, bringing people in from out of town for 30 nights a year is a big help. But the reason we do it in large part for the things that are difficult to put a dollar to the community pride piece, to the relationships. We have our players stay with host families. Those relationships are lasting. This summer, I'll go to my third wedding of someone who played baseball with us. 2 weeks ago, our former mayor in Ridgefield sent me a picture of himself in Phoenix watching the player that he hosted at Grand Canyon, and just to let me know that he was in town. And so those are things that over generations they have an impact. They become part of the social fabric, and they're an important reason about why we're here. Go ahead. So the gathering place is the gathering place is what we believe we create. Baseball is our vehicle. The players happen to be great, but baseball is the vehicle that allows us to create the community gathering place. The opportunity the reason that we had opened the discussion was through the initiative of Duncan at Pierce. We began talking about this facility as a place that might be able to accommodate what it is that we do. And so, in order to make, I have some notes on this one. So for a facility to accommodate the level of play and the entertainment experience that we offer, the fundamental thing is a college level playing field with college level dimensions and lights, and that's the starting point. It's the hardest thing to have if you don't already have it. It's the hardest thing to add, and that's what you together with Pierce have at Field 1 at Fort Steilacoom. There are other components, and we've had preliminary discussions with Roxanne and with the Parks Department about the other components that would be required for us to be able to put on the experience that we do on and off the field. those things include things like an enclosed area, like a fenced-in area, so that you have a ballpark experience. We would like to have an increased capacity that would enable us to hold, to hold 2,000 people on a given night. Not 2,000 seats, but the open space is a big component of that. A concessions facility that would enable us to serve food to that many people, and then restrooms and the sound system and other things that would be components of that kind of experience. So those are all things that we are working on with Roxanne and with her staff. A timeline of what we are likely, our timeline is that we are trying to be in a position to play in 2027. And so that would require, because of when our league makes its schedule, that would require that we are up and going and know where we're and know what we're going to be doing by August, because that's when the league begins working on its schedule. So our expectation, or our path for the next between now and August timeframe, would be working with Roxanne and with City Manager Russell on what would be a use agreement, and on what we think we might be able to do with the facility improvements. And then we would go from there to establishing a local presence, branding the team, which is always a lot of fun. And then we'd be up and running for next year. With that, I'm happy to take questions. I'm happy to have discussion, and I'll turn it back over.
Thank you, Mr. Minacci, for that presentation. Start with any questions here. Ryan, Councilmember Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for coming down and giving us a presentation. I'm certainly interested. Baseball is near and dear to me and my family, and I could certainly see us entertaining ourselves and watching a bunch of games down there. So I had a couple of questions. So what typically has been your longevity in each of the cities or places that you guys have had teams? Has it been one shop?
We would expect a long-term relationship. So we were 16 years in Cal. It's 15 seasons because we lost the COVID season. We're going on our 7th or 8th season in Ridgefield. The team in Bellingham has been there since the early 2000s. And so most of it, so we go into a community with the idea that we're staying.
Okay. Would this be a financial partnership or something that you're looking for the city to? I mean, I know that there's a partnership of some kind forming, but what exactly?
It would be a use agreement. It would be a use agreement relationship related to the field. I mean, the partnership piece is not an ownership partnership.
No, I understand that.
It's an operational where we become part of the city calendar, and
but as far as doing the improvements and stuff.
So the improvement piece would be something that we're in discussion on about how we might fund those. Those would probably be something that would require some city participation.
Gotcha. And then I guess you're looking for some sort of definitive timeline by August. What other facilities are you looking at right now around here?
So we're in Lakewood, no others. We are.
No, but in Washington State, I guess.
We are looking in other areas.
Yeah, I figured so. Okay.
Some of those aren't, and they aren't. They're not at a point where we are where they're in public discussion. I'm happy to I'm happy to have the discussion with you under some confidentiality.
Appreciate it.
But we're looking elsewhere.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lindholm.
Yeah, thank you for coming to speak to us. I can save you some time and just say you want to be in Lakewood.
What's that?
You want to be in Lakewood. I can save you some due diligence. What do you see as being the biggest obstacle to the facility now to what you need? Is there a particular build out that you're like, gosh, that's going to be a heavy lift?
Oh, that's going to be a heavy lift? I don't think so. Like I said, the infrastructure, the playing surface and the lights are the thing, like I said, that if you have if you have a lot of seats and the field's too small and you can't see, it's not as good. And so from our perspective, I think that the seating, the seating capacity and the concessions, and I probably would put, the concessions because it has some infrastructure associated with it as the heavier lift. There are other things that are smaller, like, I mean, I don't, and we're frankly still in the discovery phase in terms of things like a sound system and those kind of things. But those are, in the grand scheme, those are not big components. I think that the concessions piece is probably the biggest because of the infrastructure that comes with it.
Would you want to be serving alcohol?
We do. We would be serving, we would have it's an amateur sports facility license that gives us the ability to serve within a certain, it's essentially made for kind of what we do. It's a relatively short window with a definitive number of dates. And so, yes, that would be part of what we do.
Great, thank you.
I'll go to Deputy Mayor Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. So do you have like an expected attendance size, like in a different city that's comparable to Lakewood size?
So the attendance that we would be trying to be somewhere in the 1,300 people average range. That is because that's when these kind of work. That would be, in order to do that, it is helpful to have the ability to put 2,000 people in the park on some nights, because there are some nights when you're going to have 700. And so in general, I think that we would be somewhere in the 1,000 to 1,400 people on most nights.
Okay.
And then we'd have some nights that are larger, and then hopefully fewer nights that are smaller.
Right. And so you briefly mentioned about the name of the team. So what would that be? Lakewood
It would be
something?
It would be Lakewood.
Okay.
So it would be Lakewood, and then we would have some fun with the second.
Right. Okay. I like that. I like the Lakewood part. Thank you.
Councilmember Talbot.
Thank you so much for your presentation. So in understanding the facilities and setup and amenities needed, or I guess amenities versus requirements for this model to work in Lakewood, can you help me understand as far as what's necessary to have versus what's nice to have? It sounds like at a very minimum, the specs of the field and the lighting is the most important, and then concessions, is that a requirement or is that a nice to have?
It's a requirement, because it's one of the things that enables us to function economically.
Got it. Okay. And then as far as seating, I have looked at some of the other teams around the league and noticed that some of the fields are uncovered, but there are your older teams are in stadiums that are covered.
Covered meaning?
Covered seating.
Yeah.
Covered seating.
Oh, you mean like with a
Overhead. Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you help me understand how necessary covered seating is, or can it just be open bleachers?
I don't think covered seating is necessary. I think that some component of seat backs, just for comfort, some component of that, I think, is probably necessary for it to be the experience that people would want on a frequent basis. But the covered thing, I don't think that's a
Okay.
requirement.
Thank you. Thank you for helping me understand that. And then I guess as far as just the whole, kind of the economic model of things. So granted, I'm thinking your team is, or the league is likely paying for transportation for its teams, or but that's on somebody, that's a cost that's being,
Oh, yes, that's a,
and so I can see concessions and advertisements help offset that cost.
that's right.
Is there do you have a target revenue that you need to hit? Do you have a target number, revenue, like a range that you can give us tonight, just to indicate to us what you need to hit for a season that would help put into perspective where concessions and advertising comes in?
Not one that I'd be able to give you. I mean, part of that is really site dependent. Some places are just more, it's more to put on a game, and part of that's a facility. A large part of that relates to the facility. So,
Okay, thank you. And then as far as the naming rights, yes, that was a question and interest of mine, because for this to really benefit and really work for Lakewood, the naming is, we don't want to host, with all due respect to Cowlitz, we don't want to host
right. No,
the Cowlitz whomever's in Lakewood.
no, I understand. And part of when we reference the community pride, we get that that's a piece. And it is important to us. It's important to us to be stewards of that name and to represent it when we're here and when we're in Edmonton and when we're in Portland and Corvallis and all the other places that we get to go. We understand where we're from, and it's important to us to represent to wear the name.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And then so just to get a little bit more clarity, so would you be looking to work directly with the city and the city, or make it more of a community, like a naming competition? sort
So
of
we'd
experience?
have some, we probably would have some fun with the naming competition, to be honest. It's ultimately, there's a large part of it that is, we need a name that we can brand around, and that's actually Wade's expertise. And so a lot of it is getting to know the community and getting to know where that identity connection is. And so we would certainly be working with you, but it's ultimately sort of a collaborative effort. And we've done the naming, the name contest, and like I said, we've had fun. It's surprising what people think of.
Thank you. That's great to hear. A couple more questions, and then as far as parking, have you so far established just preliminarily whether or not the existing parking at the park meets your specs and needs?
I think that with what I think is, but what I understand to be sort of an ancillary or a supplemental area behind that left field, behind right field. Behind right field, we think that it's satisfactory.
Okay. Then I think the last question I had kind of goes back to what Councilmember Pearson asked a little bit, is is just trying to understand if I really like this, I really like the concept, and so I want to be able to be purposeful in how we can understand and flourish this concept. But if for whatever reason, just because things can if for whatever reason Lakewood could not pencil out, what other, or I guess how close are you, or how locked in are you with other places to begin in 2027? Because it sounds like you want to come in and start a new team in 2027.
Right. We have with where we are now in our various processes, it sort of requires us to keep a lot of balls in the air, and that's where we are. I mean, as you back into the timeline, you can see that we need to be making progress, and so that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilmember Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that's a totally fair response. I assume that you guys, it's not the only town. So we do have Port Silicon Park is a nice, obviously a nice park, and I don't have any concerns about neighbors or south, east, or southwest and north really. You kind of have Western State and stuff over there. But we do have a neighborhood to the east, and I'm just curious what kind of impact could we expect, or, you know, with traffic and noise and lighting or whatever, what do you guys usually have mostly afternoon, evening time?
Oh, I
You know,
should have
what kind of like,
Sure, I actually should have, I should have given you that, the time schedule. So most of our games, during every day but Sunday, most of the games are 6:35 start. If for some reason we had a reason to want to be late, you know, we've had a drone show in the past. We had fireworks in the past, and I'm not suggesting those, but when we have those events where it needs to be dark, we would go later. Ordinarily, we would start at 6:35, except for Sundays. I think we are usually at 1:05 or 1:35.
okay.
Kids get it free, so it's.
So Sundays are afternoon days, because we do Sundays, we do a kids get in free on Sundays. And so, and then 6:35 another day. So if we get to where, most games have the lights on for some period of time, but it's not, you know, usually it stays late enough that
Yeah.
we'll have some period where we have lights. But I think our average game time is somewhere in the 2:45 to 3-hour range. So you can do that math. It gets you to 9:30.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? So just to dovetail onto that point, remember our parks stay open till dusk. So, you know, when I first spoke to Tony, it was like, well, the park's still really open by the time the games are pretty much over on most weeknights, I think. I don't think it'll be, even if it's a 3-hour game, there's still probably people in the park at 9:15, 9:30. So I don't think, you know, I don't think we're going to have too much problem with that. It's my opinion on that anyway. Any other? Councilmember Talbot?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of all the, you know, while we have
Go
you
ahead.
here, as many questions as I can think of
Sure.
while we have you here. But as far as the use agreement, how do you typically structure your agreements as far as the term? Is it more typical like a 5-year, 6, 7, or shorter
Longer.
term? Longer. Okay.
Longer. We would want, because, I mean, the commitment, there's an organizational commitment. It does take some time to sort of take hold, and there's a relationship commitment with, you know, with host families and whatnot. So from our perspective, we would be longer term.
So,
And by that, I would be looking at something that has an overall timeline of something that looked like 20 years, but probably with a component, with like a 10-year component with some
Yeah,
options.
with an option, right.
That's kind of what,
thank you.
we're sort of at the early stages. We haven't even really had that discussion, but we're at the early stages of having those discussions with Roxanne.
Have you shared a draft use agreement with?
Not a
the
draft, we shared our existing use agreement with
Okay. Okay.
Roxanne, yes.
And then as far as concession cleanup, your organization is providing the employees that clean up
We clean up,
after the
sure.
games. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Great. Thank you very much for being here. I know you've met with Linda Smith
Yes.
and the chamber, and our economic development folks are here also, Becky Newton. And so we're
Great.
excited about the opportunity. And we'll talk more about it, hopefully in the future, and how we're going to fund some of these improvements. Councilmember Pearson.
One last question. So you said August is kind of like when you're looking to really have, what ideally, you know, you don't want to wait till the end to
No.
start your plan. So ideally, you know, I guess, what are you really, if you,
Ideally, we'd
Could-
be in June.
June? Okay.
Ideally, it would be in June. And I understand that there'd be pieces that, you know, park's not going to be built in June. And so we understand that there are some to come items.
Okay.
And I also, by the way, the other thing is to speak to your point about the needs versus, there are some things that I think we can phase. I do think, and I understand that there's a master plan process that's under, and I think that we hope that we would be a part of that. because I do think that there is an amount of seating that gets us to next year and gets us open. And then there's an amount of seating that makes it the experience that we would all want it to be. And I think things, there are other pieces of that, but I think there are elements of it that we'd be able to phase. And so part of it is getting to see, what do we have the capacity to do, and does that get us through those early couple of years? Right. Thank you very much for
Thank
the
you.
audience and the time and the discussion.
Thank you very much. And I just want to add, he did, they have forwarded to me, and then I'll get it to the city manager about economic development, the dollars that come in with these. So it's LTAC dollar angle and sales tax and emissions tax and various things like that. So we appreciate your time.
I look forward to speaking with you all again soon.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take a 5-minute break while we get the Planning Commission settled up here. I do want to say 3 of us have a very early morning or late night. So I want to be careful at time. So we may not have council member comments tonight. That's one of the things that I may drop off. So with that, let's take a break in 5 minutes, and we'll come back here at in 5 minutes. Okay, thanks. Nice. let's start with item number 2, the Joint Planning Commission meeting. Talk about your work plan. Do we have a presentation for this one, or? Ms. Spear.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're having 5 of the 7 members here from the Planning Commission
That's
for you
great.
tonight.
Thank you for turning
Yeah.
out today. Right, and-
Chair Mark Hare is going to provide the overview for you.
Okay, and Mr. Hare, could we get an introduction from all of the members? A lot of the members, some of the members have been, are very seasoned and others are fairly new. So they can either introduce themselves or you can introduce all of them, please, and then we can go through the work plan. Do you have any slides or you just?
I don't think we have slides.
Okay,
it's just
okay,
me.
great. Thank you.
Well, first of all, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Deputy Mayor, council members, thank you for having us, this joint session of the Planning Commission and the City Council this evening. We always enjoy this. It's a fun time to come together and talk about the things we've done and look ahead to what is on the road ahead of us. Before we get into that, though, Mr. Mayor, would love to introduce the members that are here this evening. We'll start with Dr. Wallace. If you want to just turn that microphone on, you can introduce yourselves to the council.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sharon Wallace. I'm a retired physician. I don't normally advertise that, but since it's already out there, I'll say it. And I do a little bit. I help out people charitable wise, but that's not for public comment. And then mainly I live in Lakewood, lived here all my life, and we have about 4.5 acres, and we just try to do things that are good for the city, my husband and I.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Jim Merritt. I'm an architect, and I'm happy to say I've had the pleasure in my career of working on a number of projects in Lakewood, including the building you're in. And so I'm very proud of these things that I've had a chance to be a part of as our team. And I look forward to being on the Planning Commission since January of this year, and to help in just community issues. I've always been very interested in community issues in all the communities I work with, but as a resident of Lakewood, this is very special. I might say just one other thing in family, that my dad was involved in Lakewood and construction back in the late 40s and 50s until he passed away, including contractor of Villa Plaza, which is now Lakewood Town Center, and a lot of houses kind of south of Clover Park High School, right in that area. So as a little kid, I was out here a lot with my dad, watching what was going on. And then I became an architect. So there you go.
My name is Christian Flores. I'm the owner of this roofing company, Lakewood Roofing, which I love the name. It was an honor for me to be invited to the Planning Commissioner. And I live in Lakewood. My wife, my mom, my daughters are here, my family. I also been here for probably 14 years. Before this, it was Issaquah. Well, I really like Lakewood. It's a lot nicer, a lot better. And I have, again, my family here, my business. I'm also an investor in the area, and I will be always more than happy to help on getting this, helping the city to get better and just keep improving. The council members are doing a great job. I believe the people in charge of the city on the last 30 years have been doing a great job. So I will be more than happy to keep helping on anything I can to for the city to keep going on the right direction.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Lynn Larson. I've been on the council here for a little while. And originally, we first moved to Lakewood in 1961. And I've lived here since 1999 again to raise my family here. And incidentally, Jim Merritt's father was the contractor that constructed the home that I live in, which we bought from a man named Jimmy Zarelli, who was responsible for building the Lakewood Town Center originally with a partner, and built the Tacoma Dome. And so there's a lot of rich heritage in the room.
All right. And my name is Mark Hare. I am the chair of the Planning Commission. Mr. Larson is the vice chair. I have lived in Lakewood since 2020 and live here with my wife. We have graduated 2 kids now out of Clover Park School District and have 1 more to go. And we own a cleaning business that recently expanded from Thurston County up here to Pierce County into Lakewood and got that certificate of occupancy recently from the city of Lakewood. So we're really proud to be bringing our economic power up here as well. Before we move into, again, it was referenced, we don't have any slides, but I'll talk about some of the things we've accomplished this year to date and the remainder of the work plan ahead of us. But before we do that, I would like to say a thanks to our council member liaison, Councilmember Talbo, who we miss having on the Planning Commission dais, but we're excited to see her continue to do work at the council level, who visits with us, and our city staff members, Tiffany Spear and Kevin Devereaux, and Karen, along with Jeffrey Mack and Angie Silva. Just a great team to work with and collaborate with as we move through guiding the city forward. If you don't know, we meet on the first and third Wednesdays of the month at 6:30. Similar to yourselves right here in the council chambers. So far this year, we elected our new chair and vice chair, and we had quite a bit of shakeup. Obviously, we lost 2 members to the city council, and Councilmember Lindholm and Councilmember Talbo, which opened up some spots on the Planning Commission to be backfilled. And we also had 1 resignation, which was a little bit painful. The amount of experience that left with Commissioner Combs. It hurt a little bit, but that opened up the door for some opportunity for some new members to come on board with us, and Planning Commissioner Merritt and Commissioner Crook, who's unable to be here with us this evening. As we move through this year, 3 of our current commissioners will be leaving us at the end of the year. Commissioner Larson, Commissioner Crook, and Commissioner Estrada terms will be ending in December. I don't know if they've thought about continuing to serve yet or not, but obviously that's a conversation they'll have with Mayor Boakey. So that said, we got our new team set. In January, we elected our new chair and vice chair and set our work plan for the year. And I don't know if you have this list, so I'll run down. We took action on Resolution 2026-02, which was the Lakewood Engineering Services Manual update, which was a monster lift. I'm sure you were all thrilled with all of that technical reading that you had to do in that update, but there were some good adjustments made there. We also did our annual review of the Lakewood Housing and Permit Activity Report. We reviewed the 5-year CDBG Home Consolidated Housing Plan and forwarded recommendations to council. We took action on the Shoreline Master Program, locally initiated amendment, and adopted those rules and procedures incorporating the National Environment and Climate Change Task Forces, which we'll speak more about here shortly. We took action on the 2026 Americans with Disabilities Act Transition Plan and made recommendations to council, along with the receipt of the 2026 Shoreline Restoration Activities presentation by the PRCS department and other community organizations, and reviewed the draft 2732 Transportation Improvement Plan. We also last week finalized and approved rosters for the Natural Environment and Climate Change Task Forces. Those 4 separate task forces will each have 1 Planning Commission representative, along with a supporting cast of 6 community members with various roles throughout the community, both in the business side, the environmental side. We have experts on the science side of the house and educators, along with community members who are bringing lived experience to the table as we continue to develop those plans. As we move forward with the remainder of 2026 and our primary work plan, our 4 task forces will begin to meet and develop a 10-year implementation plan and a 3- and 5-year work plan. They will draft the climate change and GHG emission comprehensive plan sub-elements, which will be exciting work and will be very impactful. The urban forest management plan will begin to come to life. And the heat mitigation strategy and implementation plan, which was started, I think, 2 or 3 years ago with a citywide assessment of heat mapping. We will also continue our 2026 comprehensive plan amendment cycle, which is, as you know, is an ongoing process. And our 2026 annual development regulations will continue as well. And then we will begin setting our 2027 comprehensive plan amendment cycle docket as we get closer to the end of the year. Mr. Mayor, that is a summation of what we've been able to do so far, and subject to your questions, we'll give it back to you.
Well, you've already had a busy, very productive year, it looks like, and just, it's only early May, and you've done a lot of major items. Yes, the engineering services manual update was very large, but you've got some other very important things on here. Do members have any questions of any planning commission members? Put people on the spot. What do you? Okay, thanks. Any questions for us, planning commission? You made mention of something, Mark.
I don't know if I necessarily have any questions, but I would like to say, being on the planning commission, we get to see kind of a macro picture of what's happening with the city. And we get a perspective that's a little bit different than you, because you get to feel the heats of the hot lights and the direct conversations with sometimes upset citizens and sometimes very elated citizens. But we get that kind of third party over the shoulder view. And recently we've been talking with Mr. Ott, city engineer, and some of the other city staff. And the conversations that we've been able to have at Planning Commission, I think for me, were really eye-opening to things that I just never considered about how the city works. And I'm going to highlight something really probably elementary if there's for all you planning folks, but we talked about, and I forget the name, Jim, you probably can recall this off the top of your head, but when you stand at the city crosswalks and you see those areas that are painted yellow and they have those little raised dome surfaces, you see those things and it just kind of brushes right by you. But we had a really in-depth conversation about the intent of those type of devices and how we're bringing changes to our community that are beneficial for people that are across the spectrum of need throughout the community. And those little domed surfaces are for folks that are visually impaired. It allows them to understand and know that they're in a crosswalk position. And it just never dawned on me that that's what that was for. And when we talk about the degree of the angle of a crosswalk and the type of slopes and these things that just, I think for the average person, it probably just blows right by them. But that's where we're at as a city. And we're thinking about those things. Those are good things, good problems to be solving. And I think it speaks volumes about this council, about this city, and the people that live here. Those are the kind of problems that we're solving here in Lakewood, and I'm proud to be part of this organization, and I know the other members are as well.
Yeah, same. Well, after you.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. As a contractor, I have another point of view also. In my ecosystem, I am always talking to other contractors, and I am very well aware of problems that most people don't see. And now that you ask, Mayor, so I'm gonna throw you a problem. One concern and one little constant that I keep hearing from friends and partners and contractors is the speed of permits in the city. Now, as a businessman, I am looking out for how can I help the city to make, more money, because you guys need it, to make our city even more beautiful and more efficient. And if the permits take extra time, they take longer, then starts making the contractors not to file for them, and homeowners, when they're trying to renovate a house, because I see it myself, homeowners asked us sometimes, hey, can you do this for me? Sure, we're gonna do all this paperwork, and they're like, can you just not do it? I tried to do it myself last year. It was not approved. Takes forever. Whoever is there is not trying to help me. And I'm like, huh. And I see that, and I ask more contractors about it. And contractors are dealing with this situation every now and then, and it keeps growing. So you are the one in charge, so then it's up to you. But I would recommend probably having to check probably that department to just to tell them, hey, you guys are here to help, to speed up the process. Don't block contractors, don't block homeowners. There's a big amount of revenue coming from that department. Yeah, just a comment. But what do I know? I'm just a roofer.
Yeah. I think you have a lot of lived experience, and we appreciate those comments because we do hear those complaints from time to time, but they don't, it's only the people who actually take the time to write to us, and we pass those on, and we're committed to a better process, but that doesn't always mean that things get done. But you've got a great perspective because you're in the arena every day.
Thank
So
you. Yeah,
thank you.
I could also probably add to that discussion, but over time, maybe we can help because it is about helping and getting those process to work a little better. I don't want to get into a lot of detail on that now because there is a lot of detail, but there are things I think could be done to help that. And I sure wouldn't mind collaborating a little bit with the departments that are responsible for permit. I will say this, on the positive side, the staff that I have had connection with, both on a planning side and a permit side, have been very good. And I believe our staff support for the Planning Commission is amazing, totally amazing. And that I don't know how they get it all done. Too. The other thing you've done as a city, which because I look back in some of my projects back in the 90s, where I was thinking about and actually suggesting a few plans on roundabouts. Wasn't really thought of in the Northwest, but in the world it was. And to see what Lakewood has done, and now I know it's at number 19, it's just finishing, is remarkable. And I think it is a way, and I've heard from staff on, the learning curve is not easy in that. There are a few things I'm going to talk to Troy about, and a few now that I do have this hat on, I'm thinking, just as a team member to make sure we can help with those things. But I commend you on that because I think it is very progressive out there as far as looking at the planning of a community, and it is very beneficial in that. So thank you for taking the step you did because I think it was a risky step when you started to push to make that happen. Thank you.
We do hear about the roundabouts, good and bad.
I just wanted to make a brief comment on the heat mitigation since I was going to be on that task force. I've had the experience of living in Arizona for 2 years and working with the Marines and going out in helicopters looking for people who might be traveling in the desert that were not adequately prepared because they were trying to avoid people. And so we would find people, and I think that I am sensitive to that issue, and I've noticed, and I'm really excited that you're going to have heat mitigation as part of this because I've been measuring temperatures. When I'm in the city, I look at them, and then I come to where I live, and it's 3 to 5 degrees cooler. And I can't help but think of all of the effects on the people, the businesses, the dangers that the city has from excessive heat with hot surfaces, and then some of the simple things of when I've traveled when I was in the Navy in different parts of other countries like Israel and that where they build completely different than we do here. Everything is done in white buildings with white roofs because it reflects light. They have all of their heating and cooling is all done, with just it's state of the art heating. They do all with sunlight. Nothing is done with power. And so it's very efficient. And so I think there's a lot of really exciting things that Lakewood does, just down what you were talking about with the things for disabled people. I saw those and I was so excited. I thought, oh, good, now people can be able to walk. I knew what the grids were, but not everyone does. Now they do. So I think there's been a lot of really forward thinking here, and I'm really excited of where we're going to be going in the future on all these different areas. They're very impressive. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you for that. The heat map doesn't lie. I mean, I think the heat map, if we did one today or this summer, it would probably say the same thing as the first heat map. And we know exactly where we don't have trees. And so we talk a lot about trees here, but we got to find ways to plant them and fix some things. So we thank you for getting involved in that. I mean, the Planning Commission's really taken on a lot in this latest stuff. It's one reason we sent it to you guys, because we knew that that was something that you were up to the challenge on it and get good people on the board. But it is a lot. It's a big thing. You're still on green. Are you talking or? Christian, go ahead.
Urban forest management, it's about trees, right? We want to keep working on protecting the temperature and making sure this area don't overheat. And at some point, there is gonna be new regulations. Just keep in mind, you just put something in there at some point. If a tree has to be removed, so a building or a house can be built on that area, just add something so we can just plant other trees somewhere else. And so my point is, don't let a tree stop a house from being built, so jobs can be created and the whole city can benefit from it. Just don't make the trees stop the progress of the city and economically. I just want to point that out. And if that don't happen, then at some point, it's going to be just impossible for homeowners or contractors to build anything.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I have an example. I have an example of how the city and the Planning Commission have been able to work together this year. The city recently acquired a property that they needed our support for rezoning next to the Edgewater Park. And while I originally objected to the paving of the parking area, and another commission member disagreed with me, and so I put it in my pocket. And while I was having my automobile serviced at Boyle's Auto Repair at Edgewater Park and Stilica Boulevard, I took a walk down Edgewater Drive, and doggone if there weren't people fishing down there.
Yeah.
Not just one person. There were 5 different fishermen evenly spaced down the Edgewater Park, one on the dock on the far end where we're going to be putting the parking lot. And a woman had a blow-up paddle board who was going to go onto the park, and 2 different fishing boats that were trailering or untrailering their fishing boats from the very, very minor little short boat launch ramp there. And I came to the realization that, and I talked to the fishermen, and two fisher women, and each one of them lived within 3 to 10 blocks of the park and had walked there. And so it truly is a community resource and a community asset that I had no idea of what it was. So I certainly stand corrected with my commission member who disagreed with me, and I changed my position entirely because it's a really neat little spot. I'm really looking forward to seeing how many more people, once it's improved with the massive improvement that's going to be done there, will enjoy the park. So that was because the city had the foresight to see the expansion of the park and the value that was there, and our involvement in being able to assist by making sure that the zoning fit as well. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for that, Mr. Larson. A lesson we can all learn, right, about that. Sometimes we have to admit that we're wrong, and if you're an elected official long enough, you end up being wrong once in a while. Anyway,
Well,
Mr. Hare, any questions from council? Really grill these folks tonight. Councilmember Lindholm.
I just want to say thank you for all your work. Planning Commission is underappreciated. You spend long hours on hard things. It's technically an advisory council, but the reality is we take everything you say incredibly seriously. And we're loath to disagree with it if we can help it. So thanks for all you're doing.
And I would also point out we have 2 of your items in front of us tonight to discuss. So we're going to, right after this, we're going to roll into the tip. So thank you for working on that.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
just want to last time
Yep.
say thank you so much for allowing us to be here tonight and have this joint session. I just want to one last time take the opportunity to highlight Ms. Spear and Ms. Devereaux. Week in and week out, they are in here until sometimes the wee hours, and no complaining. They're just getting after it, and I think it just speaks volume about the team, the culture that's here at the city staff, and we do not live in a perfect world or a zero defect environment. We don't pretend to live in that world. I think what we do well here is we respond to adversity and we overcome the challenges that are before us. And I think I couldn't imagine a better place to be. So thank you for all that you do.
Well, thank you for your good work already this year. Really a lot of stuff. And so thank you for that. And hopefully the schedule will lighten up a little bit as the year wears on. I'm kind of looking at that, but I see the comp plan docket and I can't remember off the top of my head how many items are going to be in front of you on that. So thank you for your work and thank you for all your comments. Mr. Pakwinski. And you have a presentation. You're going to do the presentation, Brenda. Thank you. So that begins on page 16 here. We're only 16. The 2027-2032 Transportation Improvement Plan, or TIP. Mr. Pakwinski is here to walk us through the changes that have been made, already approved by the Planning Commission, I guess. And so, and we'll be asked to look at this. So take it away, Troy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Before you this evening is the 2027 to 2032 6-year Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. That starts on page 93 in your packet. The presentation, I'll kind of go through it here. So what is a TIP and why does it matter? The TIP is required by state law that the city updates its program annually and presents it to the State Department, or submits it to the State Department of Transportation by July 1st of every year. Really what it's intended for is mainly for revenue-based planning. We do need it for state and federal grants. It's required for every application we make, state and federal. This year we've added prioritization so that we can kind of judge what would be kind of next up on the docket for transportation funding. And really it's a system focus in that we can orderly plan our development, preservation, and improvement of the transportation system. The 2 last sentences on this slide are pretty critical. The adoption of the TIP does not commit the city to constructing the improvements, and that if need be, via the council or staff, the TIP can be revised by the council approval following a public hearing. New this year, we've got prioritization. We've made a list of factors here weighted by safety, multimodal accessibility, funding. Primarily, that makes up 70% of the scores. And then traffic volume, readiness, preservation, conformance with the comp plan, and environmental. We made a matrix up for each of these components or categories, and it was pretty apparent which projects were very high, which ones were high, which ones were average, which ones were low, and which ones were very low. Changes to this year's TIP project-wise, we've completed or will be completing here shortly. The contract has been signed and the contractor is about ready to start either this week or next. The final street lighting project we've had for the last 10 or 12 years. This is a program that we've had mainly on local access streets, but also on arterials, placing luminaires on wooden power poles primarily. This will be the last of that. We've kind of hit the last of the power poles that are available. There are a couple still kind of solo power poles out there that either don't have enough power availability or for one reason or another are not suitable for streetlights. Kendrick Street will be advertised later this summer, early this fall. Kendrick and as well as 111th from Bridgeport to 112th Street. 112th Street, we've just completed here the paving on and reopened it 2 weeks ago. Striping will be in 2 weeks, and the street lighting for that won't come in till about August, but that'll complete that job. Custer from Bridgeport to 75th will kick off later this summer, and then 112th Street from South Tacoma to Steele. The contract for that will be signed later this week, early next, and they'll get started on that as well, but that'll be a quick burn. 1 week project. 2 new projects added to the TIP. The ADA transition plan is this kind of a placeholder for an annual program to update the facilities in and around the city that don't currently conform with the ADA. Mr. Ott will be here shortly to kind of go over that with you. And 75th Street extension. This is a pretty large capital project that would bridge the gap between Phillips and Custer along the Bridgeport area. It'd be a east-west connector that the city could look into. Funding. Funding currently for transportation is kind of up in the air a little bit with the expiration of congressional appropriation from 2021. That expires at the end of, well, it currently expires at the end of this fiscal year. And Congress not only has to allocate new money, they have to deal with a $200 billion shortfall. So they're currently going through that. As such, we have heard not yet about what kind of programs are going to be available. We still kind of sit and wait. This slide, there's a chart on the right that shows where we kind of sit for what is currently allocated or committed. A primary funding source for us is the Sound Transit Lakewood Station Access Improvement Program, which I'll go through shortly. That makes up a good chunk of the blue. There is a couple of state programs in 27, or state and minor federal money we have in 27. The bulk majority of the red in 27 is the Mount Tacoma job that will carry forward. Other than that, it is the annual programs you typically allocate in the red. Very little green surface water management on this slide as well. So we're pretty busy in 27. We dropped down a little bit in 28, about quite a bit in 28, and we have a little bit of the LSAI, Lakewood Station Access Improvement, in 29, but then really don't have any money other than allocated programs in 30 through 32. Getting into the Lakewood Station Access Improvement, I mentioned 112th here a little bit ago between Gravelly and Bridgeport. That's winding down on construction. We have the Kendrick Street portion that is getting really close to finalizing design. Also getting close to finalizing design are the New York McCord and the 47th Avenue projects. Winding out the Priority 1 projects are the Clover Creek Drive and the 115th Street extensions. And those 2 projects are primarily waiting on Sound Transit design. They're currently at 30%. We had a good meeting with them this afternoon, but they're still at 30%. So we're kind of holding our stuff back a little bit as we can't commit to horizontal or vertical alignments yet until they're moved along a little further. Once Priority 1 is complete, we will see in 28 and 29 about constructing Priority 2. Right now, we're currently about $1.5 million ahead of budget. So all of Priority 2 looks good to be funded, which would be Davison, 111th, on the Davison and Clover Park High School connections, as well as the 47th McCord, the Chicago, San Francisco, and Boston down there on the Springbrook area sidewalk and bike connections. Going to funded projects, the blue projects on this are all Sound Transit funded. The green project at the top is TBD local that's going to carry forward into 27. And then we have a federal job we're looking to still hopefully get out if we get right of way completed later this year. And there is one small project we have down there at the bottom from DSHS. We need to relocate the traffic signal at Western State Hospital. Those are the only funded construction projects that we have moving forward. Unfunded projects, we have 2 in the green up there that are designed and ready to go. Well, designed a little bit on 100th. We're at 90%, pushing to 100 on 100th. We've got right of way that we're about ready to obligate on 100th Street for 7 parcels, I believe we've got to get out there. And then the one at the top is the large 75th project. Other notable projects are the Green Street Loop, Oak Brook non-motorized loop, and Interlochen Drive. Talking about equity this year as well is kind of a new focus on the TIP. As shown in the map, projects are pretty evenly dispersed. There are a couple areas on the map that aren't as well dispersed, but that's due to recently completed projects in the Lake City area. Veterans Drive, Washington, Interlochen, and 112th and Gravelly have all been just recently completed, as well as the Fort Steilacoom neighborhood. You know, we've completed Angle and Elwood, Hipkins, Steilacoom Boulevard, some larger projects. Some of the stuff in the Northeast, we've completed a lot of projects on South Tacoma Way. As far as TIP estimated expenses by neighborhood, again, some of them are a little more heavily weighted. The downtown has the downtown Green Street Loop, which is just really a program that's a placeholder now until the downtown transportation feasibility study is completed, which we'll get a list of projects out of that we currently are estimating at about 25 million, but won't know until we actually get the list of projects out of that. And Oak Brook has quite a few, they have 2 larger projects kind of sitting in there. That would be for them. As far as equity in user management, as well as equity in geographic, we want to make sure that we're allowing enough non-motorized, enough safety projects at intersections, as well as transportation preservation projects, getting a good mix of those. And I think that this slide shows that we do a pretty good job of that. Obviously, roadway is a large amount of the projects that we have, but roadway does incorporate annual preservation. It does incorporate intersection safety and non-motorized in each of the roadway projects. So good mix of those. Lastly, we have our annual programs, the pavement management system, of which we go semi-annual, either somewhere in the $20,000 to $40,000 range is what we're currently estimating. Minor capital that does your patching, your striping, and your curb repairs at $270,000 a year. Chip seal, we do about 6 lane miles per year, and we're on a 25-year cycle. Neighborhood traffic control, which does your speed bump or speed humps, your feedback signs, traffic circles, around $30,000 a year. Bridge inspection, we're now taking that on in-house, which varies between $5,000 and $55,000 per cycle, depending on what we've got going on. And the ADA upgrade, which you'll be taking on this evening. In the lower left, you'll see our PCI is drifting just a little to the right. We do need to get a new pavement management rating to verify that. And the overarching theme on the right of that bar chart is the PCI is kind of dragged down currently a little bit by local and collectors. Moving forward, actions that we're expecting kind of coming up: conduct a required public hearing next week, adopt a resolution approving the TIP on or around the 1st of June, authorize planning and public works to pursue grant opportunities consistent with this TIP, and then authorize the city to submit the TIP on July 1st.
Thank you very much, Troy. Any questions? Councilmember Talbot.
Thanks, Troy. Well, first I want to start with compliments because thank you for arranging the tip this year. It's taken a different format that I certainly can appreciate. So having worked in a format very similar to this, so I appreciate the effort being put into prioritizing projects, especially because I understand completely the significance of trying to get at projects that are needed and address rehabilitation as well as level of service and or just connectivity and network needs, especially when you're facing the challenge of having to acquire right of way or even significant costs like dealing with poles and undergrounding or just utility relocation. So prioritization is key, and thank you for putting that going forward. I think my biggest question and takeaway from the tip has to do with the, well, if you don't mind going back to the slide with the Sound Transit projects. Yes. So I just wanted to ask the priority two projects, are you seeing that the design and construction of those projects will fall within this 2631 or 2732 tip cycle? Or are we only looking at design and completion of the priority one projects?
Yes, so the Lakewood Station access improvement must be constructed prior to December 31st of 2029. So we are currently on track, even $1 million ahead budget-wise, of completing priority two projects by that date. So yes, we do plan on designing and constructing priority one and priority two.
Okay.
And I do want to make sure that it's critical here that these priorities were not set by the city. These are Sound Transit priority projects. And
Right.
we cannot start on priority two until we have completed priority one.
Right, and that's great. That's, in my view, an aggressive completion timeline. So that's great. We want and we need sidewalks in those areas completed sooner than later. So thank you for working on with Sound Transit on that. Can you tell me more about the new project that's been added, that 75th Street extension? I just want to preface this because this is important, I think, for my colleagues and us to understand that when we look at this tip document, I know that these are typically kind of like sleepy documents. We're trying to just get our transportation projects done. But when we add brand new projects in this document and we adopt it, there are legal risks that we should know that we are faced with in some instances with this project, and particularly in terms of how we are keeping consistent with our comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan has requirements to it in the WAC and even under PSRC guidance. As a result of, as these requirements are tied to the Growth Management Act and meeting our compliance with the GMA, but also SEPA. So it's really important that the projects in our 6-year tip align with the goals, the policies, of course, in our comprehensive plan, but also the technical methodology in which we did to forecast our network and assess our future needs. My concern I think we need to get an understanding and a handle of is the where and why this project ended up in the tip, because it hasn't been analyzed in the comprehensive plan. In the comprehensive plan, we analyze our arterial roads because at a minimum, and our arterial intersections, because at a minimum, the WAC requires you to forecast, to analyze your existing condition and your future level of service. for arterial roads. But 75th and those side streets off of Phillips are not arterial or minor arterial roads. Those are local streets that were completely left out of the network analysis in the comp plan. So I think that we need to be careful in the way we treat this project. If the desire is to take a look at this project, then technically the correct way to go about it would be to amend the comp plan transportation element. You could do a small amendment of the element and the FEI and the accompanying FEIS so that you reanalyze the whole network as a whole and that connectivity, because what's proposed of this 75th extension is you're proposing a minor arterial or arterial street, at least from what I saw in the picture and the tip, 2 lanes, curb, gutter, sidewalk, etc. So I want to preface that, but I also want to of course, give a chance to, can you inform us and help us understand where this project came from?
Let me start by saying 75th is a collector arterial in the code, municipal code. So 75th, from where the road terminates on the, let's just say the east side of the creek, from that point back to Bridgeport, that is currently a collector arterial. Phillips Road is a collector arterial coming back as well. So we are talking about a 550-foot section of which nothing really exists, and about 150-foot section of roadway on the west side of the creek is currently not classified as an arterial. That's basically what we're talking about here, of new street not being classified. I do want to also preface it that none of these projects in the TIP are specifically called out in the comp plan. There are projects in the comp plan does show projects that are in the TIP that are in the CIP as well. None of the other streets are, and I'll bring Angie up to kind of discuss some of the other things about the comp plan.
Ms. Silva?
Sorry. If I understand correctly, you're referring to the environmental review on capacity projects related to transportation in our established LOS, correct? So the list of projects for transportation in our EIS, correct? Okay. Troy, related to this kind of extension project and looking at the feasibility in the TIP, will that relieve pressure off of other connecting roads in the surrounding area as part of that?
The genesis of this project really comes from relieving pressure on Steilacoom Boulevard, which is pre-COVID was at capacity and is starting to show signs of, now that we're starting to recover our transportation, of being at or near capacity again. The idea here is that you only have very limited streets. Currently, you have Gravelly Lake Drive, you have Interlochen Drive, and you have Steilacoom Boulevard as east-west connectors. Other than that, you're going to Chambers or you're going down to DuPont. There are plans for work at Chambers. 2 weeks ago, the Pierce County got a large grant for that bridge. There is work going on planned on Gravelly Lake Drive and Pack Highway for railway from Sound Transit, potentially here in the near future, that will do major renovations on those bridges. When that happens, and you already have a bridge or a road that's at capacity, you have Interlochen Bridge that's 99 years old, there is some concern for major congestion when these other projects go on then with your east-west corridors. The genesis for 75th is to relieve stress off of Steilacoom Boulevard, which is your currently your major feeder east-west. What I will also preface is 75th is not a new idea. Pierce County had this idea 30, 40 years ago. This isn't a brand new idea for this. There's a reason why that right-of-way is 60 feet wide all the way through there. They just did not implement it because it wasn't necessity at that time. That's what I'd say about that.
Yeah. Troy, part of the review of this feasibility of the east-west connection, that, again, if I heard you correctly, could provide relief from a surrounding transportation network that is at capacity or concurrency issues, which the comp plan environmental documents do document that. what I'm hearing from you is you want a little bit more analysis to justify adding this to the tip at this stage. Is that correct, ma'am?
I don't think, I guess, I think I slightly disagree that the FEIS covers this project because the FEIS covers the level of standards that are failing and would, because you have to disclose that in your comp plan. But this segment is not disclosed as a failing level of service or a need in the FEIS. When in our environmental document, we're looking at Silicon Boulevard, the corridor between 88th and 83rd, and Gravelly Lake and Washington Boulevard. So if this is a level of service need, then it should have been it should have been documented in the FEIS. If it exists in some technical appendix that's not published on the website, then perhaps that may answer it. But I think that where I see it now, and I'm gonna finish here in just a sec. Where I see it now is that as it is, SEPA prohibits piecemealing or segmenting. So by adding this road and saying it's a need in the network after the EIS was adopted, it can be seen as the city is, it can be seen as bypassing the comprehensive environmental review process to some degree. So I don't feel comfortable with including this project in the tip at this time until there was further circulation and until there's further analysis that shows where the need and the purpose and the level of service justification comes from. Because otherwise, I think it puts the city at a risk for further, as this project wants to evolve, for further legal challenges. So we got to do it right.
Beyond the SEPA and NEPA level, that a tip project would evaluate those environmental impacts. So not just with the comprehensive plan, looking at the citywide transportation needs, right? This project would also, depending on its funding sources, be required to do NEPA if it's federally funded, or even SEPA, especially with a bridge crossing in a critical area. So you're looking for kind of a transportation model, 20-year and 6-year impacts on that level of service if this east-west connection was included. Correct, ma'am?
Okay, but I want to jump in here on another facet of this, now that we're on the subject of this. But at least you've explained how it ended up in here, because when I saw it, my deal was, how did this end up in here again? Again, meaning that in the recesses of my mind, and if Councilmember Brandstetter was here, he would be able to tell us, there was somewhere at the beginning of cityhood some idea about putting a bike trail, a pedestrian bridge across there. And the neighborhood went nuts. Am I wrong in that? So the day we say, oh yeah, you're not getting a pedestrian trail, you're getting an entire street. I understand the technicalities of why. I get the whole Silicon Boulevard, maybe at overcapacity, what do we call it? What are we looking at here? And a bridge, and how easy. Now the Chambers Creek Bridge, she spoke to, everyone's wanted to get rid of that dam. They need to get rid of the dam. Everyone realizes that. There's not anybody that argues with that. But here, just to build another street to put a bridge across, is it even realistic? Even before we talk to the neighborhood, for the reasons Councilmember Talbot stated. I mean, you've got these environmental. Oh, we're going to cross the river, and I mean, understand from our perspective, you've got the engineering behind it, but we've got like a neighborhood there.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I do want to also bring up that the Silicon Boulevard is dependent upon a dam that is 80 some years old as well, and is already starting to see seepage on it. So from that perspective, between that and Interlochen Bridge, was really the genesis of this. I don't bring this to you lightly, and I don't expect it to be constructed in the next 10 years. However, if you don't start planning for it now, at some point in the future, it becomes very, very difficult to do this. It's not something that I would say that is going to be easy. It's definitely feasible, but it's also something that would be transportation-wise the largest positive impact for the people of Oak Brook, and negative on some. I will 100% agree with you. For those who have to live with 8,000 cars going by their house where they typically didn't before, that's a total change of what they had before. But there's not a lot of real estate left to be putting arterials on.
There.
I will just make one last comment, and that is, I think in general, so I just piped out things from a practitioner's point of view, reference, and experience. From a council member and a member of this community, when we build new roads, I think that we should be looking at how do these roads connect people to jobs and people to economic centers. And to me, when we build new roads, we should be trying to connect our economic hubs and our job centers as best as we can. So I don't see that this is even from that angle, I have a hard time seeing how this is a purposeful need. Thank you.
Are there any other comments, questions? Councilmember Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of projects in the next 10, 15 years that are not going to be easy projects to fund. And I feel like we're going to be end up, going out to vote on a lot of these and trying to get levies and things for projects, because we're not going to have, we don't have a big pot of money for road projects, right? So this could be one that goes, in however long, put it out to people, see if they want it, and whatever, if we don't have any other better, project at the time. But the one, let's see, the one item that I wanted to touch on was the prioritization list, and let me bring that back up. Because the one thing I didn't see that, gosh, sorry, thank you. So there's the different categories, and we have safety, multimodal, funding, comp plan. That could be kind of getting into what I'm, I guess, getting at here, but like, we've got a number of, as Councilmember Talbot kind of gets at, is like projects that could promote economic development, that could promote, be in a job center and things like that. And how do we really add that category into this prioritization list? Like, one of the examples that we talked about at our retreat was the Green Street Loop, but really kind of reimagining the Green Street Loop as being, I think someone said the old Lakewood Speedway or something, that basically goes from like Bridgeport and 112th all the way down to Lakewood, to Gravelly Lake, and then back, and then up 100, and something like that. If we were able to revitalize that whole kind of gross strip of Bridgeport, that may score okay, but I think that there's elements of it that wouldn't be accounted for in something like a Green Street Loop type of project that expanded there. And so I don't know if comp plan is, 3%. Comp plan doesn't really do much when it's compared to safety, multimodal, but like those are elements of it. But there's also, the other kind of like economic development side, the bringing people into the area, having it as a potential for a linear park as a destination, as a, you know, these kind of other elements that I'd be interested to see if a project, if we include something else in the category, how some of these other projects that aren't necessarily just, oh, here's an arterial and, you know, is it safe or not, versus, you know, there's a lot of arterials that aren't the safest around here. Like we've got gravel shoulders and stuff everywhere. So, but to Councilmember Tubble's point is like connecting, you know, job centers and higher density areas and doing improvements. You know, I think that that's really where some of the focus needs to be. And I couldn't get that out of the prioritization. The prioritization is like basically any arterial that doesn't have a sidewalk scores high here. Is essentially like you're at 70% if you just don't have sidewalks.
So, one thing I do want to mention with that is the prioritization is really for us to go look at getting grant funds. And yeah, you're right. There are a lot of grant funds out there that are aimed at arterials, or specifically arterials that do point to centers of job growth. That's typically why we've kind of scored them the way they are. As a council, you're more than, you know, welcome to adjust these priorities or pick off of this list anywhere you would like through the CIP process as well. You know, you don't have to stick to, you know, hey, this is the highest on the tip, it needs to go next. It's really just a mechanism that we had for staff to be able to, you know, observe and see what was next for grant funding.
Thanks.
Any other questions? So my question is, now that we've been brought on the project score list, is I feel like the next big item, there's a lot going on, but the Military Road Edgewood to Far West, how does that look from a grant perspective? Where are we in that process of trying to get that segment funded?
So it's been through PSRC once. It scored very low on the PSRC on the last funding round in 2024. TIB has been very positive with it, talking to them a little bit about it. So that'd be something we would look to discuss with the city manager about applying this year for TIB.
Okay, so the Custer stuff's done, but that would be the next probably. And is the Mount Tacoma Drive one, is that fully funded too?
Mount Tacoma Drive is fully funded through TBD.
Okay, and then I wanted to go to the pavement chart. It is way back in there, so I'm just doing it off memory. It's pretty stable, I guess, but for all the work we've done, should we be concerned at that level? Or is that what does that mean? What does a 70 something mean?
So 70, we typically have been in the upper 70s since for the last 10, 15 years. I will say that we do need a new refresh on the pavement management system, a new rating, if you will. But you start to worry when you get down below 70 on these things a lot. And for what it is, it'd be nice to be 80, but it's not necessarily feasible to continue to keep that up. Again, I would wait until we get a new scoring. We're due for one for the next grant round.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? So we're going to have the public hearing on this next week.
Yeah, Mayor, if you don't mind, I'd just like to address a couple of comments. This is a policy document for council to make changes as you would with any other system in place. I have seen transportation plans be modified at the council level every time based on preferences they have, be it for economic development components, trying to feed into that, and for neighborhood concerns. I mean, I can point to 3 of them in my mind right now that was the right, a project for overall transportation model that never made it forward because of some of those challenges. So council is the ultimate decider on these. The one thing I'd say is if we don't have engineers that are looking forward to try and address congestion, they're not doing their job. And that doesn't mean that all these projects are going to come through or are going to be even approved by the council. We're okay with that. But if we have people that don't say, hey, you have a potential problem on our current capacities and bring options to relieve that into the future, then we're not doing our job. But that does not mean that there is an adamant directive that council has to agree with the prioritization, agree with where these projects are in place. That's entirely what these discussions are for.
Thank you for that. Any other questions for so the public hearings next week, we'll hear if anybody wants to talk to this, and then we'll probably have some further discussion, it sounds like. Appreciate the changes. At least it's more colorful. I'm used to the old thing. Did we put anything in front of the PSRC this year?
So PSRC has not had a call
Oh,
yet.
they haven't got a
They will look to maybe have a call this winter,
Are they doing it?
potentially, but they do not have a call currently
Okay.
yet.
We got Councilmember Talbot.
Since we're in a session, if you'll be at any of the TIB workshops, we may see each other there.
Oh, good. Yeah, TIB traditionally has been, not that the PCRC hasn't been good to us in some years, but they spread the stuff pretty thin. So hopefully the military road project would, which I think a lot of people would really appreciate. There's a lot of traffic on there. Any other projects in here that give anybody heartburn? Okay. With that, thank you very much. Mr. Ott, review of the Americans with Disabilities Act ADA transition plan. And we heard a little bit about it from the Planning Commission. So I appreciate you being here tonight to kind of walk us through this. It looks like it's 91 pages, so that's going to take a while. Do you have a presentation?
I do have a presentation. It is not 91
Do you know where it
pages.
starts, your presentation?
Yeah, so that starts on page 183 of your packet.
Thank you.
Yes. And I'll start before we go through the slides. When we were here March 9th, some of the council comments were to extend the comment period time. So that's why we find ourselves here 2 months later. So, and again, as you heard from Planning Commission, we had 3 touches at Planning Commission, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. So this is the reason for being here this evening is Planning Commission recommended to bring the ADA transition plan document, the draft document, forward to council for a study session with a tentative adoption on June 1st. And again, as you heard, Planning Commission enjoyed that process going through there, and it was a unanimous vote to bring it forward to council. So this is a good summary slide about the plan. It is required by law, by federal law. The city of Lakewood finds herself, above 50 employees. We have done that self-evaluation. We will continue to do that self-evaluation. As we have always done, we'll continue to remove barriers to the pedestrian access path. We have the ADA coordinator in place. And then our goal or our plan is that this will be updated on a 3 to 5 year cycle. And again, just to remind everyone, the scope of what's in this plan is that pedestrian access route within the right-of-way. So it's your sidewalks, your curb ramps, crosswalks, ped push buttons, those items that are all listed there. But we did not include other city-owned facilities. So that exhaustive survey in 2021 really gave us the opportunity for our the basis for our GIS system. And you can see we have a lot to be proud of as a city. We transitioned from, a county infrastructure system to a city infrastructure system. That was some of the impetus to become a city in 1996. So in that time, we are now up to, and this, again, this is a snapshot in 2021. And as you well know, we've had a very robust capital program and continue to do so. But we're up at 67 miles of sidewalk. When we did that assessment, we inventoried over 1,200 curb ramps, looked at all our PED push buttons, and looked at almost 2,000 driveways. And again, a snapshot back to 2021. At that time, what we saw, and again, Capital has taken care of a number of these issues, especially along Veterans, Washington, Gravely, and Stillicum, were missing or outdated curb ramps, slope of the ramps, or even sidewalks that were outside of tolerances. So I'll go ahead and move on here. I want to talk a little bit about our design standards. So our engineers are good at acronyms, so we throw around PROWAG all the time, but that stands for Public Rights of Way Access Guidelines. So just to make that clarification, DOT formally adopted it in December 24. We have followed those design standards for a while now. Moving to the state level, it's unsurprising that the state also follows that same design guide, and it's in the you'll find it in chapter 15 of the WashDOT design guide. And then that lift that was talked about both with Planning Commission, and you're well aware of, was in March. The council adopted the update to our Title 12 and 13 and our engineering standards manual. And those updates weren't just for ADA, they were holistic across the board. And it was definitely needed at that time. But part of that update formally adopted the WashDOT design manual, which thereby adopts PROWAG. And I would just say that this covers not only our own work or capital work, but it's also all the development work that occurs in the city. So there's a number of ways that our pedestrian access routes improved. One thing you'll see, as you saw in the tip, that there will be a request as part of the budget process that will be starting here soon, is some dedicated funds just for improvements, ADA improvements across the city. And it'll be talked about a little bit later, but where we base the cost on that would be upgrading at an intersection all the PED ramps and the push buttons. So that was the cost that we picked as a baseline for that request that'll be forthcoming. The next one is our capital improvement projects, and those are moving again very quickly. And it's corrected a number of barriers within the pedestrian access route. Our O&M folks on a day-to-day basis deal with issues that come up, things like vegetation in the sidewalk or a faulted sidewalk from tree roots. They might go out and grind the sidewalk if appropriate. If not, we will bring a contractor in to make those repairs. But those are done as soon as they are the city's made aware, we take action. The other ways are, and this really is a capital, it should be under capital, but if we have an overlay project that affects the crosswalk, then there'll be upgrades associated with that overlay. But finally, this even applies to development. Typical on development that may come in if the sidewalk is out of spec for cross slope or width, or the driveway, and often a driveway is upgraded as part of a development. So those things just occur naturally. So we have this constant change within the city that's improving our network, both our capital projects and what goes on with development. So this is the implementation, but also kind of our battle plan on a 5-year cycle. So the inventory would be updated annually based on the capital work. That would also be able to feed into our prioritization update. And then the TIP is updated on a yearly basis, but from the budget side, the CIP, capital improvement program, is updated on a 2-year cycle with the budget. And then finally, every 3 to 5 years, we would do an update to the ADA transition plan. Really, the best way to look at it is a living document. So we had to come up with a scoring system, and it makes these are intuitive. You know, the condition of the infrastructure would make up about half the score. And then we use traffic volume as a surrogate for also pedestrian usage. And then if there is a known complaint, that's, sorry, I skipped known ADA use. So even at incorporation, the city focused around our schools citywide, and many of our original sidewalk built after 96 was around the schools, starting with the elementaries. But looking at those uses that do draw a high number of ADA users and pedestrian users. And then lastly, complaints. And I'll be honest, we don't get a lot of complaints as far as from our pedestrian access route. I think when I was here in March, I mentioned one that had to do with a sight impaired individual in a T intersection versus a four-way intersection. But those are few and far between, and those make very good sense to make those upgrades. So these are the big numbers, and you can see the big numbers that would take to bring everything within compliance. The largest portion would be sidewalk and driveways, and that's just simply because sidewalks need to be 2% or less to be compliant. We have a lot of 2.5% sidewalks within the city. Our pedestrian signals, again, we have and will continue to do a lot of signal upgrades. We'll address a lot of that third row, and then with that is often the curb ramps. And this was the request I was talking about, that bottom left. We'll be looking at making a request in about the $260,000 range in the budget process. And again, that's to look at, or how we came up with that cost was a typical intersection with ped ramp upgrades and ped push button upgrades. That doesn't mean that that would be the only type of project. It would be a function of what is prioritized. And again, this is something you've seen before, but just looking at funding, we're aware of our local funding, our REIT, a real estate excise tax. There can always be general fund. Our transportation benefit district is currently funded at $20. It can go up to $40 without a vote. That money is primarily used to back our bonds that we currently have and have built a lot of projects. And then we also have the transportation mitigation fee, the TMF fees, but that's solely in the downtown sub area. On the grant side, which was talked about a little bit during the TIP process, we have the HSIP program, CMAQ, which is your congestion mitigation air quality through PSRC. You could also have your STP, your surface transportation funds could also fund projects, though those are holistic to the road typically. TAP, and then that Safe Routes to School and Bike and Ped, the city has been very successful with those. We've built projects, especially when they opened up high schools to that. We did that Far West work. There was a lot of missing sidewalk on Far West up by Lakes High School. That's a fairly recent completion. We also did that first piece of 112th by Clover Park High School. That was Safe Routes to School as well. Bike and Ped was up at 84th and Pine, which there was no crossing towards Lake Park there. We have that signal now, and then that ultimately connects to the Water Ditch Trail. So that was a nice addition to the work that we also did on South Tacoma Way. And then lastly there was a little discussion about TIB, Transportation Improvement Board. They've always been a great funding partner to Lakewood. Many projects within Lakewood have either been funded or partially funded, but with TIB funds. So just talking again, I've mentioned some of these items as we've gone through, but we have a lot to be proud of over the last 30 years of progress that's been made in our infrastructure, transitioning from that county look of through lanes with gravel shoulder. We have a lot of nice infrastructure on our both north-south and east-west arterials, as well as our collector arterials and our local roads. 2021 was that inventory. That third column, the 22 to 26, that's not an exhaustive list of projects, but again, it's a list of projects to be proud of. And it shows projects that are built around the city, different uses, and definitely removed a lot of barriers. In 2026, again, we've already done some heavy lift. We have Title 12, 13, and ESMs all been updated. And here we find ourselves wrapping up the ADA transition plan and looking forward to that adoption. And that's this next slide here. Talks a little bit about that. So just a little history of the process that's been done this year. The webpage was done in January. February, we started with notices in the city manager's bulletins, the weekly bulletins. March 19th, we sent out the email to interested stakeholders, and that was a large group. It includes Center Force that Councilman Brandstetter had mentioned the March 9th meeting. We had 3 touches at Planning Commission, 2 study sessions, and then the hearing. The next step would be tonight, the council review, but also the tentative scheduled adoption for June 1st. And then lastly, we have in place our grievance process. Those forms are available. Our HR manager, Nicole, is our identified ADA coordinator. And then we also have the My 311, which deals with a lot of those emerging issues that I had mentioned earlier, like faulting sidewalk or vegetation in the right of way. So with that, available for any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Odd. Any questions for Mr. Odd? Councilmember Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the presentation. And one of the questions that I had was, it was mentioned about when development projects come in and they have frontage improvements to do, so we have some GIS information that, does it really, so we've actually surveyed the sidewalk and I've identified which areas of sidewalks are not compliant, because it's, when you look at a site, you're like, oh yeah, there's existing curb gutter sidewalk there, I don't have to do anything. Is it clear for them that they may have to do something through the GIS, or how would they get that information that when they come in to get their building permit or their tenant improvement, that they actually may have to go replace the frontage even though there is sidewalk there? Because that's a hard conversation to have, like, what do you mean? I have sidewalk there. I have to rip it all out and put it back? So how is that communicated, and is that publicly available to them, or do they have to come in and get information, or what's that process like?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So there's a number of things that can happen that would help a developer with that. One, the pre-application conference is a great process. All aspects of city, fire, water, et cetera, are in those meetings. And what we've gone to do recently, and I would say in the last 12 plus months, is we'll actually send someone out and go measure that sidewalk. So not only the width, but the cross slope, because we just don't want to miss that from the get-go as you're bringing up. The developer themselves, often they want to make a change. In addition, they have to, if it's let's say a new restaurant coming in, they also have to make a connection from that restaurant to the sidewalk for ADA as well. So there's often a number of changes that are done up front. And then as they come in for review, those are our first review comments, would be anything that would be missed on that submittal. If it was a site development permit, we would let them know. But kind of the recent typical ones I've seen is sidewalk out of width, or sidewalk cross slope or width, because some portions of the city, like in the downtown, have a wider sidewalk requirement than what we have built on Bridgeport. And then driveways, that would be the other. Those are kind of the three main ones, but they often have a number of other frontage improvements that go along with it. So removing and replacing the sidewalk is costly, but it's usually rolled up with the other improvements that are required there. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Let me find that. Oh, you got another question. Thank you.
And it's more of an observation, I guess, rather. So on the Green Street Loop topic, I'm looking through the ADA plan, and there's a number of PED, whatever they're called, little buttons, that are called out along Bridgeport. There's actually a far worse number of non-compliant driveway approaches along Bridgeport there. And I think if we can look at the big picture of how all of our plans come together, and this ADA plan and our transportation plan and our, that's what the comprehensive plan is really all about. And
Is your mic still working? Okay.
Just one thing to keep in mind with the Green Street Loop and like improvements for pedestrian access, including ADA, the RAISE Downtown Transportation Feasibility Study will be looking at those safety aspects as well as ADA compliance. In addition to that project, it's going to have series of alternatives for transportation designs for all modes of transportation, not just about cars or bikes or people walking. I think it's currently scoped and budget for no action. So what we have today, what does the downtown plan say today? But 2 action alternatives. And when we're bookending right now and brainstorming is that Green Street Loop. Should it stay in the current alignment or should it look differently? At different stages of the project, this council will be engaged as part of that and getting feedback, and are we on the right track from a policy framework? And one of the first topics to be soon to you is kind of an overview of the draft public participation plan and upcoming events that we plan, not just in the month of June, but also throughout the summer, et cetera. So stay tuned. There's going to be more as we dive deeper in that.
Thanks for the update, Angie. I think to Councilmember Pearson's point, I think that what I'm getting from tonight's study session is that the scoring criteria and the percentages associated with the weighting in the tip could use probably some more discussion with our other council members, because I agree with you, Councilmember Pearson, that whether we call that criteria comp plan or consistency with the comp plan, but just in general, consistency with the goals and objectives that we're trying to achieve economically, but comprehensive applied plan wide and citywide, probably 3%, and scoring that very low doesn't give much advantage to those projects that we're trying to elevate. Although I recognize that the Bridgeport Way is a huge arterial and would require some funding, but nonetheless still deserves the benefit of priority ranking to that degree, so that it's even the more better positioned for all types of grant funding and other roads like Bridgeport. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thanks for that work, Mr. Ott.
Thank you. So we'll see you on June 1st.
Yeah, yeah. So
All right.
the, yeah,
The only addition to the draft plan would be a summary of the comment process. So,
okay,
all right, we'll look forward to the June 1st action.
good.
Thank you for
Thank you.
your time.
Items tentatively scheduled for the Monday, May 18th, 2026 regular city council meeting and study session. So that's a 6 o'clock start. We've got a number of things on the consent agenda, including additional work on Stilican Boulevard. Resolution, and then adopting the carry forward budget adjustments, resolution for the application of the Washington State Historical Society Heritage Grant for the H Barn preservation, and the encroachment process, item for discussion, and then the long-awaited review of the automated traffic safety camera program. So we'll see where everyone's going to get their speeding tickets. Reports by the city manager, Mr. Russell.
Yeah, Mayor, just not going to speak a lot tonight because everyone has their calendars in there, so I'll only take a few minutes to go over that. And just reiterate that we are headed to DC tomorrow to meet with our federal delegation.
Thank you very much. And we do have and we do have a lot of stuff towards the end of the month, the Arlington project and things like that. And I urge people to go to that if you can. It really is a very good event. So council member comments. So we'll start with Councilmember Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No comments tonight.
Councilmember Talbot.
I will keep it short. I do plan to attend the Downtown Neighborhood Association meeting this week. I will be a little late. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Lindholm.
Mayor, just to highlight the Rotary Beer and Wine Fest is coming up on Saturday. If you can make it, that's a great event. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And it is a great event. Deputy Mayor Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. I too will be going with you tomorrow to DC and City Manager, and really looking forward to meeting our representatives and talking about our priorities. So I think it'll be a really great trip. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm very, very hopeful. We're, looking for money for the barn, and it sounds like things are going pretty well in that regard. I appreciate Tony and his partner being here tonight. He and I have had several discussions over the last couple of months about their interest here in Lakewood and the field there at Fort Stilican Park. I thought it was constructive comments. I'm really excited about it. I hope we can pull it off, that we can bring that here, because I think it gives people a lot to do. I mean, 30 times a year, there's entertainment available. It's outside, and so yeah, I think there's a lot of things, a lot of positives for this community. We have the name now. We've got that nailed down, and that was important to a number of people I spoke to. So I'm glad we've got that taken care of. So I'm hopeful that we can work through this, and we'll see if we go from there. I had Pierce Transit meeting tonight. Two meetings actually. The regular meeting, which went pretty quickly, and the next meeting, which and I'm going to look at Councilmember Talbot because she might know what it means. CTAG, Citizens
Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee.
Yes.
CTAC. They're usually mandated committees.
and they talked about the changes that they want to make. And of course, Lakewood, because Pierce Transit is here, and we also have a lot of riders, is going to be impacted. But they are in the midst of, and they were getting community comments tonight. Some were critical of the plan. Pierce Transit is thinking very hard, and we may know as early as in the next month or two, of taking a 0.3% increase in the sales tax to the voters to expand service. So it would not only expand the hours, like about 10 o'clock on weekdays and on a lot of routes. So they're having difficulty after a certain hour when they shut down early of getting, people can't take it to and from work. So their expansion of hours, expansion of routes, a lot of other items involved in there. But there were some critical comments today from some of the writers about, and the one thing, the last point before I had to leave here was, for this meeting, was a guy saying, well, I'm not sure that the routes to the sounder stations actually are working on a timely basis when the sounder train actually arrives or leaves, which I found interesting. You think by now they would have figured that out, but apparently he was very concerned about it. He said, well, I ride it, and I'm telling you, the train drops me off, and there's no bus for a half hour or more. So there are things they need to work out on that. But anyway, there'll be more coming on that. So with that, I appreciate everybody's participation tonight, and thank you very much.